Welcome. I'm going to be discussing some of the desk phones on UFO, specifically the set of mint green, orange, and lavender. I rewatched the entire show and tried to look for patterns to see if they're used in any specific situations. I'll jump into more detail later, but the quick overview. Commander Straker's office at SHADO has these phones, and we see them in use. The green phone is used for off-site civilian calls, off-site SHADO personnel, and once for the court-martial team reconvening, so I'm not sure if it was off-site or not. That wasn't clear. The orange phone is used the most often. We see him talking to General Henderson, an off-site search party, the Air Force, an off-site restaurant, but mostly Miss Eland. One of my theories is the orange phone actually just connects to Miss Eland, and she redirects his calls from there. So if he's going General Henderson, he actually called Miss Eland, she called General Henderson, rerouted the call. The lavender phone, confusingly, is also used to speak with General Henderson or some off-site SHADO personnel. And then again for a SHADO lieutenant. So that's probably the most confusing color. In Confetti check A-O.K, we see him with a similar looking phone, but there's only one of them and it's gray. So these colored phones are a kind of a recent addition from what I can tell. Up at Miss Eland's office, her green phone basically connects to Commander Straker. This happens many times during the show. The orange she uses when she's talking to an off-site press agency. Lavender connects to a phone in control near Aishia's desk. I've seen her talk to Commander Straker's office with it, and she does use it in Mindbender. But that's kind of Straker's fever dream, so I don't exactly put a lot of confidence into the color use, because he wasn't exactly in his right mind at that point. General Henderson also has these phones. I've only seen him use it with the green.
You may have new evidence, but I've got something for you. Foster escaped 20 minutes ago.
In Confetti check A-O.K, he gets a really old phone. It looks like the one that your grandmother probably had on his desk. It is old. If you're only mildly interested in this topic, feel free to go. That is the overview of what I discovered of patterns. But if you're super into UFO like I am, we're about to dive into the detail, in the weeds, how is it used level. Circling back to Commander Straker. This is not in any particular episode order. I rewatched this series purely based on what mood I happened to be in that particular day. Like if I was depressed, I was not about to watch Confetti check A-O.K. The green phone. In Exposed. He speaks with Koufax, who has just discovered that his office was broken into. I don't know if this was a direct call or rerouted. Later on in the same episode, he uses the phone when asking for transit reports.
Would you get me Moonbase, please? Oh, and by the way, where are those transit reports I asked for?
In Court Martial, interestingly, another Colonel Foster-focused episode, he uses the green phone when hearing that the court-martial team has reconvened. So basically, this color, I have no idea what it does. It seems random. So maybe it's like the backup phone for an extra line if the others are busy. I don't know. The lavender he uses in The Sound of Silence when he's asking for a press clampdown on a UFO incident.
Well, look, I can't make it any clearer for you. Well, you tell them anything you want. That's your problem.
I'm not sure who he's talking to. I'm going to guess it's Henderson. In Responsibility Seat, Alec uses the phone. He's calling a lieutenant about moon base installations. So again, not entirely sure what lavender does on Commander Straker's desk. Which brings us to orange, Ed's favorite color phone. This could honestly just be the actor loving orange. So they're like, pick up the phone. He's like, okay. It's always orange. We see this in Destruction, when he wants to call General Henderson. In Computer Affair, he's talking with Marsden, who's in charge of a search party looking for a missing UFO. This is also when he talks with the Air Force. And then a call comes in from Mark, who is having dinner with Gay, to be like, yeah, we're dating. So this is from an off-site restaurant. My guess, though, is that Mark called Miss Eland and Miss Eland called him. I don't know if they'd want to call Stryker's desk directly from a restaurant? That seems like a security risk to me. A question of priorities, we see it used probably the most often. This is how he's communicating with the hospital. Or, to be very nerdily specific, he calls Miss Eland, who reroutes it.
No calls, Miss Eland. Would you get me 012414, please? Intensive care unit, please.
This kind of supports my theory that he doesn't receive any direct calls on his phones. It's always through her, and she's the true MVP of SHADO. We also have the internal comm system. I would say this is used absolutely the most often. Phones are a rare backup. The more I watched this show looking for the phones, the more I realized how often they just use the intercom and push the button that connects them to that specific department in SHADO. It does move on his desk. So sometimes you'll see it over on the right, like in flight path and identified, and then it moved over to the left side of his desk. I guess he just moves it according to his mood. There's a scene in Cat with 10 Lives that is great at showing how the intercom worked.
Dr. Jackson.
Jackson,
The medical report I asked for on Regan. It hasn't come through yet.
I haven't been able to contact him. Nobody seems to know where he is.
Locate Regan. He is to report to Dr. Jackson at once.
In Reflections in the Water, he talks directly with a skydiver captain using the intercom, not the phones. Moonbase, it's the video link. Skydiver seems to be the intercom, but random other offsite people? Phones. Control, like if you want to call Dr. Jackson, intercom, you buzz with the button. Moving on to Miss Eland, her intercom is sort of a dark greenish and usually to the left of her typewriter. Occasionally, we do hear Commander Straker buzzing her on the intercom, not the phone system. The upper buttons on hers seem to be connected to people, and the lower buttons are things like opening and closing the door to his office. So they do other things. My personal theory is when Commander Straker just wants to talk to her, doesn't need her to reroute him anywhere, he uses the comm. Whereas if he's like, Miss Eland, can you connect me to General Henderson? He'll call on the phone. Sometimes there's a mix. In Responsibility Seat, Straker goes on the intercom, but Miss Eland picks up her green phone.
Yes, Miss Eland?
I just called the press agency, sir. They've never heard of Miss Fraser.
This happens several times, so I don't know what's going on there. When Colonel Foster comes around and wants to see this mysterious Straker person, Miss Eland is on her green phone connecting to Ed's orange phone down in SHADO. Responsibility Seat is very interesting. When she's talking to the press agency, she's on the orange phone. Then she puts that down and she picks up the green phone to call Commander Straker. This again adds to my theory that the green is the one that gets her to Ed. Later on, same episode, green phone, and then Alec receives a buzz on the intercom. And Miss Eland, I told you this was getting nerdy. Straker's at his house, flirting it up. You deserve it, Ed. And he calls Miss Eland. Miss Eland reroutes the call to Alec in Straker's office at SHADO. I think she's the reroute central, as like that security checkpoint of, should you really be talking to the commander? No, he's busy. We see the technology of the phones again in Responsibility Seat because she can apparently record people's voices on the phone and then run a background check on them. Now, it's not quick. It takes at least a couple of hours because we got through Ed having dinner and foreplay. So that's at least 2 hours, I would say. I mean, depending on how long it takes for him to warm up a can of soup or whatever he made.
Hello, Miss Eland.
You're working very late tonight. Hope to see you again soon.
Well, why don't you help yourself to a drink, and I'll go out and break out the can opener.
Hits a button somewhere, will record your voice if you start sounding sus, and then can run it through the computer down in SHADO, which will come out with your background check. So hopefully you've been good. I'm not sure if all the color phones can do this, but I would assume yes. The orange one, this is a mystery. In Time Lash, she gets frozen like this with the orange phone. I don't know who she's talking with. Because when everyone unfreezes, we don't get a nice close-up of her going, oh yes, General Henderson or whatever. No. On to Lavender. Stryker is in control, and he's hanging out with Aishia, like I would be if I were also in control.
Get me Miss Holland.
Miss Holland? Yes, I did.
So you might be thinking, oh, it must be the non-Stryker office phone. No. Confusingly, in Exposed, she uses Lavender to call Commander Stryker, thus ruining the pattern. But it was just one time. So as I said, my main theory is that Miss Yellen's mint green goes to Stryker's orange. Quick note on General Henderson, for the Henderson fans out there. In Court Martial, he's on his green phone. But as usual, that's not how simple it is. Commander Stryker is in his car, so he's using his car phone, and he calls someone at S.H.A.D.O. I'm gonna guess Miss Eland, but we're not 100% sure. This person then reroutes the call to General Henderson. So he's not actually talking with Ed's phone exactly. There's a middle phone in between. Green is not necessarily for speaking with Commander Stryker. Green could be his phone for speaking with Miss Eland. I too would like a direct phone to her desk for other reasons. Seriously, if I could ask anyone out on a date at S.H.A.D.O, anyone, it would be her. Because I think we're the most compatible. She's gorgeous, yes, but so is everyone on the show. The difference is, I think she and I would get along. We're both super over-organized, but also like to play around with fashion. And we don't like it when people treat us badly, and we will speak up and or glare at Alec. You know what you did, Alec. But anyway, she really just runs S.H.A.D.O. Ed thinks he does, but he doesn't. It's Miss Eland. And he absolutely relies on her, and he knows it. After watching every episode simply to stare at phones, my overwhelming conclusion is that Miss Eland is a goddess and deserves the world. The amount of just constantly connecting everyone with everyone else and making sure that they should be connected and are talking to the right people and are not talking to people they shouldn't be talking to is just... My whole life is spent fix this and save you. That's what I do. I keep us connected. I keep us connected. Interceptors. Immediate launch. That would be via the Moonbase video link.